Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series, and we are into March of 1987. We continue with matches that are, by any stretch of the imagination, lesser. I won't even say lesser talents. Much different talents than what we're used to for the area and for the territory time period. Black Bart against Steve Casey. I don't know if Steve Casey is related to Scott Casey, but Bart's out with a branding iron. Anyway, shoulder tackles and also arm bars and hammerlocks by Bart early. Casey looks to be a guy in good shape. Bart takes some cheap shots along the way. Uh, Ducks the clothesline, does Casey. High cross body, and has some trouble holding on to himself there. Then we see Bart kind of going back to a more brawling style, as is very common for the Black Bart character. Certainly not a technician. Sunset flip by Casey, and then Bart comes up and tries to beg off a little bit. Bart, it's still hard to fathom and believe that he is a former world champion here in World Class. Just hard to believe because A, it was so short, and B, they seem to book around guys that they believe are going to be around a long time or have a lot of long-term potential. I don't necessarily see where the long-term potential was in Bart, but I guess even in the kayfabe or territory era, it's possible to have a transitional champion or a guy that you think is going to work out and doesn't. But it doesn't happen nearly as much as it does today. Stun gun by Bart across the top rope, and Bart then goes into the ropes and hits a lariat. Certainly a much slower match than many that have started programs before. Snap suplex gets him over with the vertical snap, and Bart kind of breaks things down a little bit, goes right into the eye and tries to cheat, tries to gouge the eye of his opponent and do whatever he can to get things going in a direction that's going to be positive. Casey goes up and over the back and lands awkwardly. I think he was trying to land on his feet, but doesn't really get all of that. So certainly they're trying to get something out of Casey that I think is reminiscent of a kind of like a babyface push, but they have a lot of weird ideas here. There's a miscommunication toward the close of the match before Bart hits his top rope leg drop, and needless to say, 1, 2, 3, Bart gets the win. But this match was bowling shoe ugly, as Jim Ross might term it. Dusty Wolf out next against Lance Von Erich. Lance Von Erich, of course, a big guy in the area in terms of just being a push talent. Dusty Wolf, relatively new. Von Erich getting some ride time with Wolf. And what's interesting to me here is Wolf is bleach blonde. I have not seen a blonde Dusty Wolf before. Not been my experience. Monkey flip by Von Erich, and he goes for the inside cradle, but actually does so twice, and Wolf out quickly both times. Von Erich is a guy they could still, if they wanted to, even in 1987, build around. They put enough time into the guy where I think if they wanted to put a belt on him, if they wanted to put the major belt on him, they could. Obviously, the world belt still on Kevin here. Interested in where it goes after Kevin. I do not know that answer, as I'm watching this through for the first time, like many of you probably are. A weird Irish whip into the corner and a stutter step walk through is the result. Monkey flip out of the same corner a few minutes later by Von Erich. Von Erich manages to get his adversary in a compromising position, then goes to the top rope, hits a top rope drop kick, which is really nicely done. 1, 2, 3 gets the win there, and Von Erich is successful. Interview with Red River Jack and Bruiser Brody, proving they are not one and the same. However, this is not something that Gary Hart chooses to or wants to believe. Then we see a big man, 300 plus pounds, Jeep Swanson, with Gary Hart against Perry Jackson. I mean, they literally do this match in less than 2 minutes. Swanson uses some brawling level tactics here, gets to where he wants to be relatively quickly, gets a victory, and poor Mr. Jackson is not in a good space. In quick order here, Fantastics against the Rock and Roll RPMs. I still have difficulty telling the RPMs apart. Actually, not where I was going there, as Tim Brooks and Jack Victory out. So guess they mislabeled that, and I wrote down the label when I was watching the top of the match. Actually, what ended up happening is that the Brooks and Victory were in there. The RPMs take over the match for some storyline reason, and that is the bit of a miscue. So again, some rather goofy stuff going on in World Class at this point. Fantastic's former tag team champions, Tommy Rogers, in with the head scissors early, and clears house, gets one of the RPMs to the floor. Lots of regular and consistent tags, cut off the ring by the RPMs. A few minutes in, they double team Tommy Rogers for a bit. Rogers ducks the clothesline, double high cross body, 2 count there, and then Bobby Fulton in to make the splash pin. Doesn't get what he wants on that. Needless to say, the RPMs are bailing to the outside. They break the match down a little further, slower, and take back to the headlocks. Rogers back in with more speed, head scissors takeover, hip tosses and the like. And, I mean, it's a good match for what it is in terms of the RPMs. Not well known in the area, not well established yet, but the Fantastics give them enough where it's not the Rock and Roll Express, it's not the Midnight Express, but it's a team that can hang and be on their own. I assume they end up being tag team champions somewhere during this era, partially because I think I remember reading it, and partially because there aren't that many teams, and when I say they, I'm talking about the RPMs. Needless to say, Bobby Fulton in there. Fulton ends up getting choked out over the middle rope. Lots of cheating by the RPMs. They don't really seem to care much about rules and regulations, but needless to say, Fantastics go out to the floor. They duck back in, trying to get a victory relatively quickly. This is a match obviously meant to put some time in because they go quite a while. Of course, the main event of the program, at least on a wrestling side, final segment is a promo. But the main event of the program is Matt Bourne and the Dingo Warrior, so you're not going to get a ton of time out of that, which means this tag match has to put in a good bit of time, because you're not going to get more than, at most, 10 minutes out of the Warrior, and that's being generous. So all 4 men end up in the ring, Fantastics and the RPMs. There is a near fall, RPMs, and everybody is kind of fighting. Referee loses all control, and they go to a time limit draw. Nothing gets settled here. Obviously, that means they are going to do battle at a later point. As mentioned, main event, Matt Bourne with Percy Pringle against the Dingo Warrior. That is given, probably about 6 or 7 minutes total remaining time on the card. Warrior and Bourne go brawling with each other for a few minutes. Big double axe handle, kind of a Polish hammer type thing by the Warrior, and Bourne almost no-sells it, comes right back up. Bourne gets some ride time on the Warrior, and then starts to drop knees and things on him. Tries to work a hammerlock, doesn't work out very well. Front face lock by Bourne. Obviously, he's trying to guzzle the Warrior a little bit, hold him down, but that also doesn't work very well. Obviously, Bourne is one of the guys that Warrior had issue with from the beginning. Big clothesline attempt by the Warrior, but Bourne ducks down, and eventually the Warrior does pick up the win when the cane of Percy Pringle is thrown in, and disqualification win. Then we see Gary Hart talking about Mike Von Erich getting a cheap win over the over Brian Adias, and also the, I guess, affirmation of Red River Jack and the tie-in with Jeep Swanson, all this. Eventually Brody and Swanson are going to do battle in some 2-minute sprint style match. But anyway, that closes us for this particular broadcast, and we'll be back with more right after that.